Back on a Friday, busy day already, and we're only 1 hour in, but news breaking across the landscape that Pete Golden, who has been with Nick Saban since Jeremy Pruitt left to go to Tennessee, is on his way out, and he'll be taking the similar job at Ole Miss. Michael Bratton tweeting that Golden was far from elite as Alabama's DC, but he would be a massive upgrade for Ole Miss. Michael, great to see you again, as always. Happy New Year. And tell us about your, it sounds convoluted, but it's 100% accurate. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. And it's rare that we have a coordinator switching jobs within the conference, within the division even. I think it's even rarer that we get one where both fan bases seem to be happy. But that's the situation, as Ole Miss defense was more or less a train wreck last season. And, I got to be honest with you, Paul, if Alabama, Nick Saban got rid of a coordinator, I think he got rid of the wrong one.
Yeah, and I think he's going to get rid of the other one because the other one, by all accounts, Michael, is heading back to the NFL and will probably grab the first job he can. So it is not the first time this has happened, but Saban will be replacing both coordinators. In terms of the names that you're hearing on the defensive side, we've mentioned Leonard Schumann from Georgia. The one that intrigues me is Jeremy Pruitt, because I have no earthly idea, even if he can pass mustard, how that one would go over, considering the stench left behind in Knoxville.
Well, I do know, Paul, that he's got a strong reference in Mike Griffith, and big fan of Mike Griffith. Not talking down to him.
What else matters in this world, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, if we could put aside Jeremy Pruitt's NCAA issues, he would be a grand slam. Unfortunately, I don't think we can just move that to the side. It is interesting that you mentioned Glenn Schumann. For years and years, teams have kind of tried to put the dagger in Nick Saban, so to speak, and take away his key assistants. How ironic would it be if Saban was able to do that to Kirby Smart? And I know it's popular now to say that Kirby and Georgia has passed Alabama. That's something I said with you months and months ago. I believed it, and it's more evident now than ever. So, it would be a window into what's going on down there in Athens. Muschamp, clearly Kirby Smart is in on the defensive game plans. Glenn Schumann, how much of a promotion would it be to jump from Athens to Tuscaloosa? I don't know, but he's one of the better recruiters on Georgia's staff as well. So I think Glenn Schumann would be the top candidate if I'm Nick Saban.
Yeah, and again, that defensive room is confusing because Kirby Smart is obviously there, and you have Will Muschamp and Schumann just replaced Dan Lanning. But I think you mentioned the most important thing, recruiting. Going back to your earlier point, which has been the theme of the week, has Georgia finally passed Alabama? I think it's pretty obvious with 2 straight championships they have. But elaborate a little bit more, Michael, on your thought there, because some people keep pushing back on that and saying, "Hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves here."
Well, this is something that I've been pointing out for a number of seasons now, Paul, and people, they either think I'm just being ridiculous, which I don't know why you'd ever think that, but if you go just look at the big-time matchups that Alabama has had, and I'm spanning all the way back to that time they got throttled by Clemson in the national championship game. But when they face an opponent that has elite talent, particularly at the quarterback position, they can't slow it down. And this is not a 1-year issue. This is about a 4 or 5 year issue. I don't see those issues at Georgia. So, again, I know the game has changed. It's more wide open than ever. But I think with Nick Saban kind of opening the door, changing his program, I think he had to do it with these quarterbacks and receivers. At times it's outstanding, but they've lost a step significantly on the defensive side of the ball. And Alabama fans can point the finger at Pete Golden all they want, but we all know the defensive mastermind in Tuscaloosa is Nick Saban. That's why I've been saying for a while that I think Alabama has taken a slight step back, and we don't see those issues at Georgia with the same system, nearly identical, same talent on both sides of the field. Georgia's defense steps up time and time again. I mean, you can only count once or twice where that defense got torched, and it comes from the likes of Ohio State and Alabama.
Michael, on that subject, and I think it is difficult because we are just it's instilled in us and upon us not to dare tiptoe too close to the golden child, now GOAT, in Nick Saban. And even the situation the other night with Pollock wasn't even talking to Saban. He was just making an offhanded remark. That's 100% accurate, and the whole college football world melted down. And we had a local writer from Tuscaloosa on here yesterday talking about how that viral moment is going to inspire Alabama this year. Can you help unpack all that for us?
Yeah, and we've all made the jokes, Paul. I even made it myself the moment that happened. But in reality, if Alabama needs motivation from David Pollock instead of Georgia owning the SEC, owning the country, essentially, then we got problems down there. But I was stunned, Paul. I got to be honest with you. I remember, of course, Saban and you and Saban had quite the viral exchange. I believe it was down at SEC Media Days. I can't believe right to Nick Saban's face, somebody said something like that, and he didn't push back on all of that. I was kind of expecting somewhat of another viral moment that we just didn't get, and maybe that's an internal motivation for Alabama all off season. But again, if they need David Pollock to motivate them, they got a real problem down there. All they need to do is look to Athens to get all the motivation they need, I would think.
I just think there are many things that Nick Saban could have done. But he didn't even have to have the nuclear explosion like he did with me to just look at Pollock and say, we'll see about that, buddy. And everyone would have loved it, wouldn't they? I mean, Nick Saban, matter of fact, swatting David Pollock away, but he didn't do it. He took the punch, and you're the first person that's really amplified that point, because some of the Tuscaloosa writers in Alabama beat people are, this is the moment. I thought this past year, did I miss something? It wasn't this the revenge tour, Michael?
Yeah, it was a revenge tour after the rebuild. I don't know if they have noticed, but in Athens they just had a rebuild year and they won the national championship, went on undefeated. But yeah, to your point, I mean, Nick Saban looked like he had been he looked like he shrunk into himself when he heard that. He just had, in my opinion, the best quarterback he's ever had, and they couldn't get it done. He just had the best defensive player I think he's ever had. They couldn't get it done. And I realize two players don't make a team, but that was the storyline all off season. We thought that Alabama was going to do what Georgia just did, and Georgia did it, and Georgia may be even better next season, as hard as that is to believe, while we're sitting here wondering so many questions with the Crimson Tide, with potentially both coordinators, starting quarterback, again, defensive player of the year, two-time off to the NFL. There's a lot of questions, and I am less certain that Alabama even wins the SEC West than I am of Georgia winning the national championship next season.
Well, I need to go there because I went to the same school that we all did. When a guest makes a hyperbolic statement, I've got to call him on it. I say that jokingly, Michael, because you just alluded to the fact that you think someone else other than Alabama could win the West. Who is it?
Yeah, right now I would lean LSU. I mean, I love what Brian Kelly's doing. He overachieved clearly in year one. You go from week one, that I don't want to call it a debacle, but it was for about 3 quarters against Florida State. They looked just inept. How he got that team to Atlanta, I'll never know. Just a marvelous coaching job. We even saw, in the middle of the season, Tennessee went down there to Baton Rouge and destroyed LSU. Now, he took the credit or the blame for that loss, I should say. But to get them from those 2 low points to Atlanta, I thought was just a terrific job. They're killing it in the transfer portal. They're recruiting like they always recruit down there in Louisiana. LSU right now, I think, is the team to beat in the SEC West. And I'll try not to chuckle when I say this, Paul, but I really do think Bobby Petrino to Texas A&M makes the Aggies interesting. I'll say interesting, but I'm certainly not picking them to win the West at this point.
Michael, I don't want to agree with you because that's too good of a story, but I do agree with you on the Petrino point. I mean, I said what I said last week about Bobby Petrino. It has nothing to do with what I think the impact's going to have. And they've got a lot of great players. I mean, they may be the only team in terms of defensive talent that can at least on paper match what Georgia has.
Right. And again, we've all taken the shots at Jimbo. I think you and I are probably 1-2 on his do not send a Christmas card list, so I get it. But in my opinion, Paul, you look at what Texas A&M was last year. Obviously, it was a train wreck on offense. But moving aside from that, issues in the locker room. And it just seemed on the sideline, with him going through his Cheesecake Factory menu of a playbook, I think it, not only Jimbo, but I think a lot of these college coaches, Paul, there's just too much with NIL, with the constant recruiting. And I'm not just talking about high school. I'm talking about recruiting your old roster, which clearly has been an issue there in College Station with 25-plus players jumping into the transfer portal. I think it was very wise of Jimbo to cede those play calling duties and say, hey, we messed up so many regards. Let me focus on all these things. Same thing could be said for Bobby Petrino. He doesn't have to worry about any of that. He just has to worry about calling the game on Saturday, coaching up these quarterbacks. I think it could potentially be a win-win for both of them. And if not, it's going to be entertaining to watch the whole thing crash and burn. So either way, we win, Paul.
I agree. Michael, we win all the time when you're on the show. Again, if you missed it, Michael Bratton alluding to the fact that LSU could be the team to beat in the SEC West. Not that I'm trying to create content for you, Michael. You do a good enough job yourself. Thanks for coming on, as always. We will see you soon.
Anytime, Paul. Thanks for having me.
What a guest. What a great, fantastic conversation that always is. Doesn't equivocate, doesn't qualify, doesn't tell us what we already know. He tells us things we didn't know previously. Separates him from the pack. And again, the Mike Griffith recommendation might be our favorite line of the new year. We'll take a short break, and we are coming right back.